Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Now Politics. In our last video, we went over an electoral game plan for Trump's 2024 general election campaign against Joe Biden, assuming he wins the Republican nomination, in which we outlined some specific steps he needs in order to maximize his chances of victory come November 2024. In this video, we'll be going over some new general election polls which have come out in the last couple of days and the new insights they offer to us as we head towards the 2024 presidential election. So, Trump has been making some major surges in a lot of the recent polls we're seeing going over the presidential election. So let's look at this one nationwide poll going over the 2024 presidential election published by Redfield Wilton. It gives us three matchups. In one matchup, in which it is Biden versus DeSantis, one of the Republican candidates for president, Biden wins by 7 percentage points. In another one, in which it is Biden versus Ramaswamy, another Republican candidate for president, who we talked about in a previous video, Biden wins by 5 percentage points. But when it is Biden versus Trump, this time Trump is beating Biden by 2 percentage points. He's beating Biden in a general election poll nationwide. If you go to 538, there's a lot of other polls we see between Biden and Trump in a general election matchup, and Trump is leading in a lot of them. Let's look at the August 7th polls published by Premise. There are two polls which go over Biden versus Trump. In one of them, Trump beats Biden by 4 percentage points, and another one, Trump beats Biden by 7 percentage points. Now, that's probably an anomaly, the second poll, because in a country as politically polarized as we are in now, I can't imagine a presidential candidate winning the national popular vote by 7 percentage points. But still, Trump is making some significant headways in them. So this is quite significant. Trump is beating Biden once again nationwide. We saw this happen a couple months or a couple weeks ago, but then Biden was able to lead Trump for some time, and now it's coming back again. Trump is beating Biden. The reason I find a lot of polls which show Trump beating Biden nationwide more significant than polls which show Biden or another Democratic candidate beating Trump nationwide is because Trump has historically been underestimated by polls in general. If you look at the 2016 presidential election polls by Real Clear Politics, you saw that in the polls, Clinton beat Trump by an average of 3.2 percentage points. But in the actual general election, Clinton only beat Trump in the national popular vote by 2.1 percentage points. She was overestimated by the polls by 1.1 percentage points. Let's look at the 2020 polls. In the 2020 polls, Biden beat Trump by 7.2 percentage points. But come the general election in November 2020, Biden only beat Trump in the national popular vote by 4.5 percentage points. Biden was overestimated by the polls by 2.7 percentage points. Now, if you look at the 2024 polls, Biden is beating Trump by 0.7 percentage points, but this is just accounting for polls from July 7th through August 6th. So it has a couple more of the recent polls to account for, but you get the idea. Trump has been historically underestimated by the pollsters. And now, if he's winning in them, then that gives us a lot of insight into the 2024 presidential election, which goes in Trump's favor. Now, let's look at some of the polls in key swing states there are 6 key battleground swing states which are going to be on the headlines come November of 2024. That is the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. So recent polls have come out for the general election in the states of Arizona and Michigan. So let's look at the Arizona general election polls. So we see 2 matchups, both between Trump and Biden. And in both matchups, Trump is winning. In one matchup, he wins by 1 percentage point against Biden, and another one, he wins by 2 percentage points against Biden. This was from, I believe, yes, Emerson College. And if you look at some more polls from Arizona from 538, you'll see that Trump is doing exceptionally well. We saw the last 2 polls in which Trump is beating Biden, and in the other polls, in this one published by the Public Opinion Strategies and sponsored by the Citizens Awareness Project, it's neck and neck. And in another one, which was published by Prime Group and sponsored by a Democratic organization, Citizens to Save Our Republic, Trump is beating Biden by 4 percentage points. And I think this is the best poll Trump has, and it's sponsored by a Democratic organization, though this was a bit early on. But like in these latest polls, Trump is still beating Biden. Let's look at Michigan now. In Michigan, Trump is also faring quite well. Emerson College gave 2 matchups between Trump and Biden for August 4th. In one of them, it's neck and neck between Trump and Biden. And in another one, Trump is beating Biden by, again, 2 percentage points. I find the Michigan poll to be quite breathtaking because if you think about it, Michigan is the bluest state of the 6 battleground states. Of all the 6 battleground states, you could look at every metric you want, Michigan comes out as the bluest in general. Michigan is the only state of these 6 battleground states to have a Democratic trifecta in government. And in 2020, it delivered the best margin of victory to Biden of the 6 states. It went to Biden by 2.8 percentage points. That's even bigger than in Nevada, because in Nevada, Biden only won by 2.4 percentage points. So, in the bluest of these battleground states, if Trump is doing so well, then what does that say about Wisconsin? What does that say about Pennsylvania? What does that say about Nevada? So now the question becomes, why? Why is Trump doing so good in the polls? So now one obvious answer is, of course, these spoilers. Cornel West is running for the presidency from the Green Party. No Labels is, I believe, set to offer a pair of bipartisan candidates to run for the presidency and the vice presidency. And, these groups, these people, they're going to be taking away votes from Biden, which will further be helping Trump. And, these groups, I believe they're also being included in the polls. And that's why Trump is able to beat Biden in a lot of these polls. Something else I can't help but notice is that all of these gains which Trump is making in the polls are coming days after he received his latest indictment by Jack Smith related to January 6th. Now, something which I stressed in my last video going over the Trump 2024 game plan is that assuming Trump wins the Republican primary and goes into the general election season, is that he and his campaign, along with the rest of the Republicans, have to be able to demonstrate to voters through whatever means they can that these indictments, these charges which Trump is receiving are baseless, and that these indictments and these charges are political tools meant to suppress political opposition to government. What are the conservative defenses we see on each of the 3 Trump indictments? In the first one, in New York City, based on campaign finance violations, the defenses are that There are statute of limitations issues, there are jurisdictional issues, there are just a lot of legal obscurities, and as such, this case has no standing and is just being used to politically persecute Trump. It has no legal standing. What is the conservative defense we see for the second indictment related to classified documents kept by Trump? The defense is that Biden also kept classified documents after his vice presidency, and he never got charged with anything related to that. So, this has very little standing in the court of public opinion, court of political opinion, because it is quite hypocritical. It is politically motivated. And what is the defense we see for the latest indictment which Trump has received? The defense is that the government is trying to target Trump for invoking his First Amendment rights. It has no legal standing, and thus it is politically motivated. Right now, this messaging, whether you support the indictments or not, something you have to recognize is that this messaging is already being employed to people. And is it possible that some people are, thinking these indictments are politicized? These people in the Democratic Party are trying to politically target Trump using these baseless indictments. It's quite possible, and as a result, Trump may be benefiting from that in the polls. CBS News released a recent poll among Democrats, Republicans, and independents related to Trump's indictments, and I found this quite interesting, specifically the last poll. So, in the last poll, the last question it gives, it asks for the Trump indictment, which is, I believe, related to the January 6th indictment, the latest indictment Trump received, which concerns you more? That Trump tried to overturn the presidential election, or that the indictment is politically motivated? A higher share of independents, 41% against 38%, say that they are more concerned about the idea that the indictment is politically motivated. So, yes, whether you love the indictments, whether you hate the indictments, or whether you're indifferent to them, or a lot of people, including critical independent voters, thinking that, these indictments seem to be politically motivated, that these indictments are political tools. Yes, they are. And the more the Trump campaign is able to employ this particular messaging that, these indictments are being used to suppress political opposition, the more success they can potentially get among a lot of voters, especially independent voters. And we're already seeing this materialize. There's a reason Biden is not commenting so much on these indictments and touting them, because he knows that if he does that, he's going to make a lot more people think that these indictments are politically motivated. So, while a lot of Democrats see these indictments as something which is going to further weaken Trump in the general election, it can very well backfire, as we're seeing it could right now based on all of these polls. Now, the third potential reason of why Trump is doing so good in the polls is, of course, Biden's disapproval rating, I'll say, not even approval rating. Biden is doing really, really bad with his disapproval rating. So let's see. 22% of Democrats disapprove of his performance. 88% of GOP voters disapprove of his performance. And a whopping 60% of independents disapprove of his performance. That is a really, really high rating of disapproval. Specifically, I'm talking about among independents. And that's really going to be a big liability for him. So now, yes, it's true that some disapproval is coming from progressives who have not seen Biden act as much progressively, and they would still vote for Biden if he was in a general election against another Republican. But still, to see 60% of independents disapprove of you, that is really concerning. And now, why is such high disapproval happening? Well, one important reason has to be the economy. So, Ipsos released a poll which was published on August 7th of 2023, which asked Americans about how they view the economy. And the results are quite shocking. 64% of Americans say the economy is worse off compared to 2020 under Trump. 2020 was the worst time of economic hardship for the country since at least the Great Recession of 2008. 2020 was horrible. We had COVID 19 then. The economy was in complete breakdown. And now 64% of Americans say that the economy today under Biden is worse off compared to 2020. That is shocking. And 73% of Americans say the economy is worse off compared to 5 years ago, which was 2018 under Trump. So, again, the economy is a very, very big liability for Biden. And again, something else which I talk about in my Trump 2024 game plan in the last video is that Trump, assuming he wins the Republican primary and goes into the general election season, has to be able to attack Biden on critical policy areas. The areas I said Trump should focus on are immigration, foreign policy, and of course, the economy. And there's a lot of things Trump can attack Biden on related to the economy. The extremely high inflation we have seen, the negative and or low real wage growth we have seen in the country, mainly due to, again, inflation. A lot of Americans are saying that their wage growth is not catching up to the rate of inflation. And of course, Trump can talk about lower than expected job growth, because in the last video we went over how the pace of job growth still has not exactly met the pre-pandemic pace, and Trump can talk about jobs and so on and so on. Protecting jobs is something people liked about Trump. That's a pretty strong area for him to compete on, and if he's able to get his messaging through effectively, it can really help him maximize his chances of victory. So now, considering all these surges we have seen Trump has been making in the polls and the potential underlying reasons behind these surges, how will this affect the Republican primary? We will see there are a lot of voters who may still not be completely solid on voting for Trump, who could very well be swayed towards voting for him if they see that he is the person, the Republican, who could perform the best in a general election matchup against Biden. If you think about Ron DeSantis, right, his only defense to GOP primary voters, despite all the shortcomings he has had in his primary campaign, is that he is the Republican who would do the best in a general election matchup against Biden. But that's not even true anymore. If you check the original poll we went over in the beginning of the video, which went over 3 matchups for the 2024 presidential election, Trump is able to beat Biden by 2 percentage points. But when it's Biden versus DeSantis, DeSantis loses by 7 percentage points. If you check out some of the nationwide polls in 538, Trump is able to do pretty well, pretty decent in a lot of the polls between him and Biden. But when it's Biden versus DeSantis, DeSantis is losing. And this pattern exists in even more polls. So Trump at this point is now an even better general election performer than DeSantis. And a lot of people in the primary who may be siding or leaning with DeSantis because they think he is the most practical and or viable candidate, they're probably now going to move to Trump because he seems to be doing better in the general election. And a lot of Republican primary voters already think Trump will do better, as the polls are able to show. The New York Times and Siena College did a poll among predominantly Republican primary voters, and one of the results shown in that poll is that 58% of potential Republican primary voters, 58%, think Trump will be able to better defeat Joe Biden. So these poll surges not only favor Trump for the general election, but they also embolden him in the primary election as well. So thank you all for watching this video. Please make sure to like the video, leave a comment because your opinions are always appreciated on this channel. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all and have a nice day.